Good morning, everyone. Please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 203, All Creatures of the Earth and Sky. If you would like to see the music, you can turn to 203 in your hymnal, and we will sing verses 1 through 4. This is a joyful song celebrating the earth. Hallelujah. You may all sit down. We're so glad you're here today. Good morning and welcome to the home of Unitarian Universalism in Central Washington. My name is Rita Salama, and I serve on your worship team, the Covenant Group Steering Team, and the Nascent Fundraising Committee. And I am also the celebrant for today's service. If you are a visitor this morning, we are so glad you are here. This morning we welcome every person of goodwill, just as you are. However you get around, whomever you love, whatever body you inhabit, whatever your age, you are welcome here. Let's take a minute to notice who's sitting around us. If there's somebody in front of you or behind you or to the sides of you that you don't know, please introduce yourselves. And now it comes to that time every Sunday when we acknowledge where we are. We gather here on the homeland of the Pasquosa. Like most native tribes, they did not conceive of land as a commodity to be owned by individuals, but as something that belonged to the community. The land was something they were a part of, not separate from. Think about how the world would be like if we all had the same view of the lands, that we were stewards of it, caretakers. Would pollution or global warming even be a problem? The United States government made agreements with the Pasquosa in 1855 and 1893 about the rights to their land, but broke those agreements and through a number of nefarious ways stole the land that had been ceded to them. We still profit from those actions, and the Pasquosa still live here, although they are not able to host community gatherings, practice traditions, or conduct tribal meetings on their original homelands because the land no longer belongs to them. They continue their traditions, though, and still seek to have all their rights recognized. For more information about the indigenous tribes in this area, please see the Colville Tribes website. The link is in the order of service. And now our opening words are Rise by Gretchen Haley. Because the tides are rising, so must we rise. To this moment.
Rise.
To this day.
Rise.
To this life.
This place in the web.
This and that is yours and ours.
Rise.
Because the earth remains
Our only home.
And we,
fellow travelers,
Its only hope.
for healing,
wholeness,
Salvation.
rise.
before the mystery
Before the Big Bang.
That started it all.
that this infinite universe
Still takes notice of us.
Still feels the in and out of our breath.
still holds us,
Connects us.
Rise.
or surrender.
With gratitude.
For this beauty,
This chance
To be part of it all.
to give back,
to weave,
Life.
past,
present,
Future.
everywhere, always.
as one.
Come, let us worship together. When we gather on Sundays, we kindle a sacred flame, joining the Unitarians and Unitarian Universalists all over the world who are lighting their chalices as a symbol of our faith. If you are joining remotely, please feel free to light your own chalice as well. Today, Priscilla Selden, a member of the Community Care Coordinating Team, will light the chalice.
We light this chalice for the web of life which sustains us, for the sacred circle of life in which we have our being, for the earth, the sky, above and below, and for our Mother Earth, and for the mystery.
And now it's time for all ages. So the video will be on the screen if there are any kiddos here. Hi, Claudia, I see you. You can come closer to see the video if you wish. And if you're a kiddo at home, you might like to come closer to your source of the video and so that you can see it better. Today's service is in honor of Earth Day and focuses on our 7th UU principle, which is respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Our reading is excerpts from A Holy Curiosity by the Reverend Bruce T. Marshall. How shall I live? By seeking to be faithful to my religious affirmations in the choices and deeds of everyday life. A belief that underlies the Unitarian Universalist emphasis upon ethics is that we can make a difference. We need not be resigned to the status quo, and we ought not let ourselves become cynical. We can become engaged in the struggles of existence, and we can influence each other's lives and the shape of human society. Every Sunday, we set aside time for sharing our joys and sorrows. And today, I would like to start this with a collective sorrow. It's a litany for those lost to climate change, and it's written by Reverend Erica Barron. It seems especially relevant given all of the extreme weather events in the last few months. So we'll take time to acknowledge all those already lost as the world feels the effects of global warming and climate change. Thousands of people, as well as animals and plants, die every year from the effects of global climate change. As we acknowledge those lost, I ask that you respond with, "We remember you." To all those people lost to extreme heat waves, we remember you. To all those people lost to floods, hurricanes, mudslides, and other disasters caused by changing weather patterns, we remember you. To all those people lost to hunger as crop patterns change, we remember you. To all those people lost to drought as weather patterns change, we remember you. To all those people lost to disease as the environment shifts, we remember you. To all those animals, siblings of flesh and blood, breath and bone, whose lives have been lost as global climates change, we remember you. To all those plant spirits, siblings of the green world, whose lives have been lost as global climates change, we remember you. To all those species lost forever as global climate changes, we remember you. We remember you and we commit ourselves to restoring balance. So may it be. Everyone repeat, so may it be. Well, here we are, approaching the 53rd annual Earth Day this Saturday, celebrating this tiny blue ball so perfect for our existence. It has everything we need. But you know, Earth doesn't need us at all. We are just another species of animals that live here. But unlike other species, Homo sapiens, with our big brains, have found ways to adapt to any climate, any environment. There's no place on the planet that our species hasn't invaded. All the while, we keep taking and taking from Mother Earth, polluting and using up resources to the point we are putting our own existence into peril. I've read that the only other creatures that come close to surviving everywhere and will probably outsurvive us is cockroaches and rats. I don't know if we're in good company or not. As UUs, we uphold our seventh UU principle, respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. This is from Article 2 of the Unitarian Universalist Association's bylaws. But very soon, the 7 principles will likely be changed to, gasp, 6 values and covenants, all centering around a foundation of love. The difference between the principles and the values is that the principles are simply statements, whereas the values have an element of accountability. One of these 6 values is interdependence. It goes on to say, we honor the interdependent web of all existence. And here's the part that pertains to us. We covenant to cherish earth and all beings by creating and nurturing relationships of care and respect. With humility and reverence, we acknowledge our place in the great web of life, and we work to repair harm and damaged relationships. It can get pretty discouraging thinking about the shape our planet is in. Makes me want to curl up in a ball with the covers over my head. At least I wouldn't be polluting or consuming or contributing to the problem. But I know that for myself, one way to feel less hopeless or depressed is to act in a positive way towards repairing harm, no matter how small that act is. So like many of you, I recycle. I also shop at secondhand stores, and I shop in my own house before I buy new things. And when I open my refrigerator, I cut my food waste by thinking, what needs to be eaten, rather than, what would I like to eat today? And I combine my errands to make fewer trips. There's another thing that I have been working on, adopting a different diet. And our guest speaker today will tell you more about that, and it's exciting because it's actually a way to make a big difference. So I have the pleasure of introducing Kris Cameron. She is a board member of the Wenatchee Confluence Rotary Club, the regional co-chair of the Rotary Environmental Sustainability Action Group, Plant-Rich Diet Task Force, that's a mouthful, as well as the Environmental Sustainability Chair. She is a retired public school teacher and union leader with professional experience in corporate human resource management and community organizing. She holds a BS in Business Administration from Central Washington University, an MA in Education from Antioch University, and a principal's credential from WSU. She is a Central Washington native and lives with her husband and 4 spoiled hens in Wenatchee. So, Kris, welcome.
Good morning. I want to thank Rita for that nice introduction, and also to Emily and Rita both for inviting me to be here with you today. It's such an honor and a privilege and a joy. The love in this room is palpable. I've had a lump in my throat almost all morning. So you may be wondering why someone with my background is speaking to you today about the environment and diet. I'm not a scientist or a physician. I'm just a person like you all who cares about our community and the beautiful planet that we call home and all of the creatures that live on it with us. I'd like to share a little bit about my journey to becoming a plant-based eater with you, and I know that many of you are already on this path. And it's so great to see familiar faces, and just as an aside, many faces that I can put with names that post great stuff on social media. It's like, oh, that's who that is. So I grew up in Ellensburg. I was a 4-H kid. My dad was on the rodeo board. We had horses. We raised beef cattle, just as an aside. We ate beef almost every single day. And in the community I grew up in, if you didn't eat beef every day, you were suspected of maybe being a communist. Or worse, one of those hippies. I also spent virtually every weekend working on friends' farms, cattle ranches, dairy farms, egg farms. I was happy to get out of the house and do something new and different, and my friends were really happy to have help with their chores. So as an adult, I practiced what I learned as a kid, and that was to plan every meal around meat. But for the past year, my husband and I have become plant-based eaters, and it's been one of the best decisions we've ever made, physically, psychologically, and spiritually. We do eat eggs from our hens, our pets, but we eat next to no meat, dairy, or fish, and we now buy garbanzo beans by the case. Can you imagine? We've tried a lot of new foods, and cooking and shopping had become so much more fun. We often joke that grocery shopping has become like a plant-based treasure hunt for us. Look what I found. This is great. So how does a person raised in beef and rodeo country become virtually a vegan? Well, it started a couple of years ago when we brought home 4 little chicks that we wanted to raise as laying hens. And I grew up viewing livestock as commodities, not beings in their own right. So I was really surprised to discover how smart and funny and personable and affectionate chickens can be. They're amazing. They are just amazing. Some of you are nodding your heads. You have chickens too. These girls all have their own personalities. They have distinct voices, and they have become our family members, beloved family pets. So somehow in the course of learning all that I could learn to become a good chicken mom, I became aware of the horrors of factory farming. In fact, just this week, 18,000 dairy cows burned to death on a commercial dairy farm. A farm, they called it a barn fire. It was a cement warehouse where those cows couldn't escape. Our system needs to change. Anyway, sorry. I had joined the Confluence Rotary Club a couple years before we got our little chicks, and I wanted to do that because I wanted to have an avenue for community service, and I also wanted to be in community with a diversity of folks who I might not meet otherwise. So through Rotary's environmental work, I've learned about the impacts of our industrial food systems, not only on the animals that are trapped in those systems, but also the impact on the climate, the environment, the exploitation of workers and farmers in that system, and also the impacts on our personal and public health, which was really surprising. And that's all fueled by our heavily animal-based diets. Now, you don't have to be a vegan. If you're saying, oh, but I eat meat and dairy and eggs, it's okay. You don't have to stop doing those things. We just have to cut back a little bit. So you might be surprised that a service club like Rotary has a focus on climate and environmental degradation. The reason for that is that it was becoming very clear that Rotary's humanitarian work around the world was becoming much more difficult because of the impacts of climate disruption and environmental degradation. So Rotarians refer to themselves as people of action, so sitting on the sidelines wasn't an option. So I got involved in Rotary's environmental work, and through my club, I brought our, and I see fellow Rotarians in the room as well, we brought our 15-day plant-rich diet challenge to the museum here in town, and Emily was a participant, and that led to my invitation to be with you today. So I understand that climate justice and climate fairness and environmental justice are topics that a lot of you are concerned about. So I hope that I offer you some information that will be helpful in that regard. I'd like to share just a short video that's a really nice overview of some of the topics that I'll touch on a little bit later. So Darius, is that possible to put up for everyone? Great. All right. I'll see you on the other side, as they say on TV.
Hello, and thank you so much for this opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Andrea Wotan. I am a member of the Plant-Rich Diet Task Force under the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, or SRAG. As you may know, industrialized agriculture is a key contributor to global environmental degradation. Our mission is to inspire people around the globe to adopt a diet that will reduce their carbon footprint, promote global environmental sustainability, and improve human health. That diet is a plant-rich diet. We envision a world where Rotarians are leading this global food system transformation to protect and preserve our planet. Research shows that industrialized animal agriculture, including commercial fishing, is a leading cause of all of the planetary emergencies listed on this slide. Let's explore a couple of these issues. This chart shows us that consuming animal-based foods uses up far more of Earth's resources and is more harmful to our climate than consuming plant foods. Per every ton of protein consumed of each of these foods, producing animal-based foods, which are on the right, uses far more land, which is the green bar, more water, which is the blue bar, and generates substantially more greenhouse gas emissions, which is the orange bar, than producing plant foods, which are on the left. Regarding land use, the global livestock sector uses 77% of the entire world's agricultural land to graze livestock animals and to grow crops to feed the estimated 70 billion land animals that we eat every single year. And when it comes to water, growing over 1 billion tons of animal feed every year to raise livestock is putting stress on the world's freshwater resources. As for greenhouse gas emissions, producing chicken and pork emits about 3 times more greenhouse gases per unit of edible protein than producing legumes, and producing beef emits about 20 times more greenhouse gases. Now let's turn to deforestation. Planting trees or reforestation is critical to addressing climate change. However, preventing deforestation of existing forests is even more important because intact ecosystems absorb more carbon from our atmosphere than new forests do. Unfortunately, animal agriculture has become the #1 driver of tropical deforestation. Natural habitats around the globe are being burned and cleared for cattle ranching and to grow livestock feed that is shipped around the globe. Tragically, this habitat destruction is decimating populations of wild animals. According to World Resources Institute, reducing consumption of animal-based foods among the world's wealthier populations could free up significant amounts of land, possibly enabling the world to feed 10 billion people in 2050 without agriculture further expanding into forests. Our oceans are also in big trouble. The average person now eats almost twice as much seafood as they did 50 years ago. It's estimated that we are pulling over 1 trillion fish out of our oceans every single year, and 94% of our ocean fisheries are now overfished or maximally sustainably fished. And populations of creatures like dolphins, sea turtles, whales, sharks, and rays are plummeting, while with some under threat of extinction, since they get caught in fishing nets, on fishing hooks, or are killed on the decks of fishing vessels. There is a simple, fast solution to all of this, and that is plant-rich diets. World Resources Institute tells us that if the 2 billion of us high consumers cut our meat and dairy consumption by just 40%, we can save an area of land twice the size of India from being destroyed and avoid 168 billion tons of future greenhouse gas emissions, which is equal to 3 times total global emissions in 2009. Here are some relatively easy dietary changes that can yield big environmental results. Go meatless 1 day a week. Make 1 meal a day 100% plant-based. Swap out cow's milk for a non-dairy milk like soy, flax, or oat. And eat plant-rich or plant-based whenever you can. And plant-rich diets are scientifically proven to lower the risk of chronic disease. Forks Over Knives is a great free documentary about the impact of diet on health. We all share one common home. Let's come together to restore our planet starting today by eating more plants and fewer animals. If you would like to experiment with a plant-rich diet, please join us for a 15-day plant-rich diet challenge. You'll have fun experimenting with new recipes and learning from the education provided, including a stellar pre-recorded speaker series featuring experts from around the world. Thank you so much, and we look forward to joining together to protect and preserve our planet.
There are posters up that you can join the Plant Rich Diet Challenge, and I'd be happy to stay around and answer any questions about it too. It's a life-changing experience. I can speak from experience. How many of you have heard of Project Drawdown? Just a few? Okay, great. You've heard of that? Good. So Project Drawdown is an official partner of SRAG, which again is the environmental arm of Rotary. And it's a consortium of scientists and researchers who have looked at all of the proposed solutions to climate change and environmental degradation. And the name comes from drawing down our greenhouse gas emissions so that we don't get to the point where anything that we do makes no difference. So we want to draw down our greenhouse gas emissions to help stabilize the climate. So surprisingly, the two solutions that they found were the most immediate and impactful were number one, reducing food waste that Rita talked about. Very good. And number two was adopting plant-rich diets. So most of you probably know that we waste, they estimate, about 40% of the food that we produce and that we purchase. So when that food waste gets to a landfill, it generates methane, which is about 80 times more heat trapping than CO2 in the environment. Same thing with plant-rich diets. So when you talk about industrial agriculture, beef and dairy cattle and sheep not only emit methane from their bodies, and not flatulence, that's a common myth, it's actually their burps that are the source of that methane. Whew. Also, the CAFOs, which are confined animal feeding operations, think big factory farms and feedlots, also generate so much urine and manure from those concentrated herds of animals that a lot of times it's the equivalent of a small city's waste, but it's not treated in any way. So that methane is going right up into the atmosphere. The good news is that methane is a lot shorter lived than CO2. It only stays in the atmosphere for about 10 to 12 years versus CO2, which can last for hundreds of years. So the great news is just by reducing food waste and eating more plant-based meals, we reduce the amount of methane that we're putting into the atmosphere, which buys us time. It buys us time to implement all the big infrastructure projects like charging stations and wind turbines, because those things take a lot more time, a lot more money, and a lot more political will to put into place. So some will tell you that, oh, we've already passed the point of no return. Nothing we do makes any difference. I say that we can live in hope or we can live in despair. My favorite definition of hope is a goal plus a game plan plus willpower. So I would assume that everyone in this room has a goal of living in a safe and healthy environment and has the willpower to do what it takes to make that happen. So I would say to you that eating a plant-rich diet is a very fun and easy and effective game plan to go with that. So I'd love to come back to that really cute book, the Earth book, that was shared earlier, and show you how a plant-rich diet can amplify some of those important practices that were discussed. So first of all, as the book said, little things can make a difference. When enough of us do them, they add up to big, powerful change. Senator Patty Murray has a great quote. She said, when people tell you that you can't make a difference, it's probably because they're afraid that you will. So when we ask ourselves, what does my individual action matter? What does that mean? I'd like to think that it's like the Best Picture winner this year, which is everything, everywhere, all at once. Do it all. It all matters, and it all adds up. That might sound overwhelming, and you're probably thinking, man, this gal's at Pollyanna in Dante's Inferno. Whew. Whew. But just like Dorothy's ruby slippers in The Wizard of Oz, we have had the power to change this trajectory all along, simply by what we put on our plates and what we pull out of the refrigerator instead of buying new food and wasting it. It's within our capacity to do that. So they talked about conserving paper, right, to save trees and the critters that live in them. Forests are one of our greatest carbon sinks, pulling greenhouse gases out of the air. And as Andrea said, industrial animal agriculture is one of the leading causes of deforestation in the world. Brazil just released a study and said that the rate of Amazon tropical deforestation was actually 40% higher than last year. So this matters because the Amazon rainforest and our oceans are considered the planet's lungs. They trap a lot of carbon and they stabilize our climate. So not only does that rainforest destruction reduce nature's ability to pull carbon out of the atmosphere, but like she said, South America has lost over 90% of its wildlife due to habitat loss. And wildlife already accounts for just 4 to 6% of the mammalian biomass on Earth. And many scientists say over 1 million species are on the cusp of extinction in our lifetimes. So we can do this, but we need to do it now. Another aspect of Amazon tropical deforestation is a lot of indigenous peoples are being moved off of their ancestral lands, and a lot of them are being killed in the process. So it's important to pay attention to those things. Turning off the faucet to save water, great practice, right? If you do that when you brush your teeth, you save about 3 gallons of water. If you eat a plant-based burger instead of an animal-based one, you save over 500 gallons of water. And if you go an entire day without eating any animal products, you save over 1,000 gallons of fresh water. So it can add up. As Andrea said, about 75% of the fresh water on the planet is used for agriculture, and most fisheries, as she said, are maxed out or in the process of collapsing. Many of you probably saw in the news that several crab fisheries in Alaska this year were shut down due to primarily overfishing, as well as warming ocean waters due to climate change. Closer to home, scientists think that Salt Lake is going to dry up within maybe 5 years or so. 5 years. 87% of that water, they estimate, is being drawn away from the lake for agriculture, and most of it for livestock feed crops. There are companies based in China and Saudi Arabia and countries like that that are buying up alfalfa farms in our drought-stricken West, and they're shipping that hay overseas to feed their dairy and beef cattle in their own countries. The Colorado River system, you've all heard, is dangerously low, huge drought. Again, the majority of the water that's being pulled out of the Colorado River watershed is for livestock grazing and livestock feed crops. We have a task force member who lives in Colorado. She recently shared with us that she would pay 1/10 of the property taxes she now pays in Colorado if they grazed cattle on their land instead of leaving it in its natural state. So we have some policy things to fix too. So our American history and our tradition is steeped in cowboy culture. My personal life is steeped in cowboy culture. We associate eating steak with wealth and privilege, but the rate of our consumption of these products is a major contributor to our current drought. There are a couple of other things in the video that I thought were worth mentioning. The other thing that Andrea touched on just a little bit is that eating excessive animal products, not per se, but if you eat more of them, most of us eat more animal products than we need to for health, is related to incidence of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and telling us that eating plant-based foods is good for our health is one of the biggest consumer cons since big tobacco told us that smoking was good for us. You just don't need it. Taking the school bus, riding a bike, all good, but industrial agriculture contributes more to global warming than all forms of transportation combined. And experts say even if we stopped all fossil fuel use tomorrow, that the greenhouse gas emissions from our industrial agriculture system would continue to keep us from hitting our environmental targets, our climate targets that have been set before us. Large CAFOs, those confined animal feeding operations, are also typically located in communities of color and communities of poverty. The air and water pollution from those facilities contributes to asthma, cancers, fish die-offs, groundwater contamination, just a host of horrible things. Cleaning your plate and saving leftovers so everyone has enough to eat. The global livestock industry is the largest user of land on Earth, using 83% of the world's farmland to graze livestock and grow livestock feed. They only produce 18% of our calories and 37% of our protein. It takes 100 calories of grain to produce just 12 calories of chicken and 3 calories of beef. So it's a grossly inefficient and wasteful system that contributes to food insecurity around the world. Experts say, as Andrea said, if we convert just a little bit of that land to feeding humans directly, we can feed everybody right now, even the projected population growth by 2050. So Todd's book is correct. If we take care of the earth, it will take care of us. We want every being to be happy and healthy, and I would add a number 10 to Todd's list, and that's eat fewer animal products. So in conclusion, I wanted to say that in Rotary, we have what we call the four-way test, which is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? So When it comes to fairness, we know that the majority of the world's land and water are used for agriculture, with large portions devoted to grazing and growing feed crops for animals. The wealthiest nations consume the majority of these animal products, while too many people around the world are food insecure. Terrestrial and marine wildlife is being lost at an alarming rate due to our animal product consumption, while most of the animals that we consume are housed, transported, and slaughtered in very cruel conditions. Industrial agriculture is a major contributor to climate change, and it's wreaking the greatest damage on the countries that contribute to it the very least. So adopting plant-rich diets can bring greater fairness to humans, animals, and the planet. We can't keep treating the earth like an ATM because we can't eat money. So finally, I know that I've shared some really sobering information today. I hope that I've also shared that we have the power to make this situation much better. If we can change the rules of baseball, America's pastime and tradition, surely we can change what we eat and apply consumer pressure to our industrial food systems to do better by us all. And as Maya Angelou said, when we know better, we do better. So thank you for letting me be with you today, and let's all help each other know and do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Kris. Today's service is a little longer than usual, but hang in there because there's more things to talk about. Today is a Share the Plate Sunday, and Ronnie Craven, who with Leslie Marshall leads the Little Free Pantry, will be telling you about that program. And when she is done, I know that you will want to write a check or give a cash donation, so start looking in your wallets and purses now so you'll be ready.
First of all, I want to thank Kris for an inspiring talk about how we can really save this planet, because Rita said it best, the earth doesn't care if we live here or not. It doesn't. I used to say, we're killing the earth. No, we're killing ourselves. So that's my short little speech. I have more to say about that later. So Leslie Marshall and I are the current co-leaders of our Little Free Pantry, along with our amazing team, many of whom are here today. Mary Peterson, Lori Riegert, Emily Soroki is a sub. I know I'm missing somebody, but anyway. Oh, hi, Linda. And Nancy Warner was probably the co-founder of this whole movement, along with at least 12 other locations in our Wenatchee Valley. This sort of started during COVID when we were worried about people being able to get food on the shelves were empty. But it soon came to our attention that really we were not aware of how hungry people are in our valley. I say this a lot, but I've been hungry. And so I hope that people who haven't been hungry can feel the same way I do. It's a passion that everyone needs to be fed. Sorry. Back behind you, I put together a sample of what we put out. That's what we put out every day. The last time I figured it out, it was about $50 a day. I know it's grown a lot because of the cost of food. We focus on protein. Sorry, Kris, we do put out meat and some cheese things like spaghetti sauces, etc. We do our best to put out fairly nutritious food and focusing on what people will take. You know, we have our own personal standards. I've provided a list of what we put out, and the reason I provided you with that is we've mostly focused on keeping our fund very healthy and rich, and with donations, which are greatly appreciated. Leslie and I are the main shoppers, so we know where the best bargains are, the bulk products, but I wanted to focus also on the people who, again, I've been poor, so maybe I would be embarrassed to put 50 cents in the plate or $1. We want to make it clear that every small little bit helps, and so I'm going to put a tub out in the front. We have a tub out in front for donations, and we haven't had donations from the public for a very long time. But if you can bring a can once a month, or a box of cereal, or any little thing, it is amazing how fast it adds up. I knit. If I sit here and knit one row before church starts, it's amazing how fast my project gets done. So every little bit that you can contribute is a benefit. Money is good. I'm not saying we don't want lots and lots of money, but I want people who don't have a lot to feel as welcome with their gifts as those who can afford to give a lot. One of the things you'll notice there's nothing in glass out there. There are two reasons that you cannot recycle glass in our community unless you save it up and drive to Chelan, which I just sent 3 boxes up with a friend recently. And plus, it'll fall off the shelf and break. We don't, and I made a note of this, those little snack packs, not so great. You think it would be great, but somebody comes along and eats it and throws it on the grass. And almost everything in there is in a recyclable container, which is important. So for instance, cup of noodles, not good, because it's in a styrofoam container. But Top Ramen, it's still in some plastic, but it's less. Those are the things that Leslie and I think about a lot. So you each have a list. I welcome you to ask me any questions about what you can do, how you can help, what kind of food. You don't have to stick to this list. Sometimes I'll find the most surprising, interesting things in a donation. I think, oh, that's cool. Somebody'd love to have that. There was one more thing I was going to say and I forgot it already. What was I going to say? I hate that when that happens. So it's not a complete list, but it is a guideline. And again, we buy a lot in bulk, but we welcome every small donation. So please, give with your hearts, kind of the way that you measure garlic.
Please remain standing. As we go forth from this sacred space, may we celebrate Earth and our shared lives. May we recognize our connections to all that is in and on Earth. May we truly and deeply value the inherent worth of all in this awesome interconnected web of existence. May we commit ourselves to a new way, and may we hold our commitments and each other gently yet firmly. Blessed be and amen. Let's form our circle.